God is launching disciple-making movements through us now on many continents in many people groups.
For security reasons, we don't want to use names,
specific locations, or pictures of those directly involved.
but you will hear their stories.
After 6 months in Sweden, we received a phone call from Mongolia. Over a crackling connection, they told us that they had just baptized 102 people to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Apparently, the Holy Spirit hadn't left when the apostolic team did. Before we left, the Mongolian church leaders had asked us to return and train them to cross-cultural and linguistic borders to spread the good news about Jesus Christ and to make disciples that make disciples. After almost a year away, we discovered that the number of homes where believers were meeting had doubled to 54, and that the number of baptized believers had grown to 600. While he had been gone, our disciples had birthed more second-generation churches, and third-generation church had started. The church had also initiated a number of mercy ministries to the poorest of the poor in the community. Together with the church, we set up a training structure with the goal of equipping Mongolians to go and start multiplying churches, both in Mongolia and beyond. We called it the Mongolia Mission Center. A team of Mongolians that had been trained in cross-cultural church planting at the Mongolian Mission Center moved to the Mongolia province in Dadal, just on the border with Siberia. It is said that Genghis Khan was born here on a hill overlooking a river just outside of Dadal. The population of Dadal is almost exclusively Buryat, a minority tribe in Mongolia. The team served the community, shared the gospel through words, works, and wonders, and saw the first Buryats come to faith in Jesus. It was a time to baptize the new believers and thus launch the first ever Buryat church in Mongolia. The church planners from Erdnet and the Buryat new believers gathered in the morning outside of the log cabin where one of the church planters lived. They talked, prayed, and worshiped as they waited for the flatbed truck that would take them to a spot by a river about an hour away. The truck never showed up. By early afternoon, the leader of the team managed to get a hold of 2 Russian 5-seater Jeeps, and somehow 34 people squeezed in, together with the live sheep to be served as supper, and drove for an hour. Watching how new Kalk Mongolians, less than a decade after the gospel came to them, had reached out cross-culturally and were now baptizing over a dozen Buryats in a river near the birthplace of Genghis Khan, brought such joy to all. 4 years later, a delegation of Buryats from Dadal came to the annual mission conference in Erdnet. They took the stage, dressed in traditional Buryat clothes, thanked the Mongolian church for planting the gospel among the Buryats, shared how the movement had spread into Dadal and beyond. Then they asked to be trained as cross-cultural missionaries so they too could send workers to the least reached. People from the Erdnet disciple-making movement undertook outreaches to other ethnic tribes, spreading the gospel, laboring in dangerous and difficult circumstances, very different from their homeland. Regardless, disciples were made, churches started, and new missionaries sent. Their passion for God's glory among the nations and obedience to Jesus' commands was passed on from person to person, church to church. In 2012, Mongolia was the #1 missionary sending nation in the world, only 2 decades after the modern arrival of the gospel.